is Joy News Prime.
This is indeed Joy News Prime here on Joy News on Multi TV, your election headquarters, where we're counting down to the 2016 general election, which is 27 days away. Tonight, 7 presidential candidates, including 3 initially disqualified, have been certified by the Electoral Commission to contest this year's election in December. The parties have since picked their positions on the ballot paper. We'll bring you updates from the campaign trail and the New Patriotic Party's plea to ex-President Rawlings and founder of the governing National Democratic Congress to help stop Togolese nationals from voting in Ghana. Meanwhile, in the Dododio constituency here in Accra, police investigate alleged assault of the parliamentary candidate of the opposition NPP in a scuffle that broke out last night with supporters of the governing NDC in the constituency. The NPP supporters earlier in the day massed up at the Jamestown police station to demand the release of some of their colleagues arrested in connection with the scuffle. Those who were rooting for Hillary Clinton utterly disappointed, fearing grave repercussions, but the U.S. ambassador to Ghana is offering some hope. Now, my name is Israel and Joy News Prime is available across Europe via ABN Television. Stay tuned. Now, very first story, there will be 7 candidates contesting the presidential election when Ghanaians go to the polls this December. The Electoral Commission, after initially disqualifying 12 of the aspirants, readmitted 3 of them following a Supreme Court directive that the nomination process be reopened. The 3 who made it back onto the ballot are former First Lady Nana Konadu Rawlings of the National Democratic Party, Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum of the Progressive People's Party, and Edward Mahama of the People's National Convention. Here's EC Chairperson Charlotte Osei with the announcement. First, of those who couldn't make it and those who did.
The public and the candidates as follows. As of today, 2 candidates withdrew their nominations. They are Mr. Akwesi Adayo Dike of the UPP and Mr. Kwabnaje of the RPD. The following nominations were not accepted by the Commission because they do not comply with Regulation 2 of CI 94. Either the number of subscribers were not as required by law, or the subscribers were not valid voters, or the forms were not completed in quadruplicate. The candidates are Dr. Ejenim Boateng of the UFP, Mr. Tien Ward-Brew of the DPP, Madame Ekwe Adonko of the GFP, Mr. Kofi Akpalu of the IPP, Mr. Richard Nixon Tete of the UDSP, Mr. Hassan Ayariga of the APC, Dr. Henry Herbert Latte of the GCPP, and Mr. Alfred Kwame Asiedu Walker, an independent candidate. These are the nominations which have been accepted by the Commission in the order of their submission. Nana Adodankwa Akufo-Addo of the NPP, John Dramani Mahama of the NDC, Ivor Kobina Greenstreet of the CPP, Jacob Osei Yeboah, an independent candidate, Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum of the PPP, Mrs. Nana Konadu Rawlings of the NDP, and Dr. Edward Mahama of the PNC.
Now, the Electoral Commission immediately followed with the balloting of position to determine the way the candidates will appear on the 2016 presidential ballot. Joy News' Joseph Akable witnessed the process and joins me in the studio with details. Good evening to you, Joseph. So walk us through the process, how the EC came to settle on the 7 presidential candidates and how they're going to appear on the ballot paper.
First and foremost, the party representatives were presented to identify themselves. After they had done that, the balloting was in 2 phases. The first phase required that they pick when they will be picking the actual ballot. So, for instance, the Progressive People's Party, they picked number 1, which meant that when it was time to come over and do the actual balloting, they will be the first to pick their number. So same was for the other political parties. They had opportunity to pick their numbers. Then afterwards, the second time the commissioner called upon them again in order of the numbers that they selected. Then they decided upon which, depending on which one you pick, to determine what will be your position on the ballot paper.
All right. So then, how are they appearing on the what has been the how are they appearing on the ballot paper?
So number one is that of the CPP, led by Ivor Kobina Greenstreet. Number two is the NDP, led by Nana Konadu Rawlings. For number three is the National Democratic Congress, led by President John Dramani Mahama. Number four is the Progressive People's Party, led by Dr. Papa Kwesi Ndum. Number five is the NPP, led by Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Number six is the PNC, led by Dr. Edward Mahama. And number seven is Jacob Osei-Yeboah. He's an independent presidential candidate.
All right, so as you can see on your screens, we have a fair idea how the candidates or the various aspirants are going to be appearing on the ballot paper, especially when the notice of poll is put out by the Electoral Commission. So just to run you through them once again, the very first slot is occupied by the Convention People's Party's Ivor Greenstreet. And number two on the ballot is Nana Konadu Rawlings, a former First Lady. She's representing the National Democratic Party. And then President John Dramani Mahama, who will be leading the National Democratic Congress into the race. And then Papa Kwesi Ndum, who was initially disqualified and has found his face back on the ballot paper. And then Nana Akufo-Addo is number 5 on the ballot. And then Edward Mahama of the People's National Convention, he's number 6. And then Jacob Osei-Yeboah is number 7. Now, what has been the reaction of the candidates, Joseph?
In fact, for the Progressive People's Party, you recall, like you mentioned, they were the ones who were disqualified. They took the matter to court. They got a ruling in their favor. So first and foremost, they were happy about the fact that they are back in the race. And then again, they make the point that it's an opportunity to sell the good message of Dr. Ndum to the electorates. So we spoke to the party's chairman, Nialo Tebri Hammond.
Good jobs, preventable diseases that has engulfed us. We're lucky to have escaped Ebola, but it all means that we need to take care of our surroundings, and that's what the Progressive People's Party wants to embark on, wants to be given the opportunity to ensure that we live a healthy life, that we can grow, old enough without all these, malaria and other diseases that we have come to accept as common diseases.
So you'll be number 4 on the ballot sheet. Is there any significance for you? What do you really make of the number 4?
Well, one ought to be able to let the average Ghanaian know that if they are looking for the best in the candidates, they should vote number 4. But yes, the 4 is associated with the symbol, the sun, and that is why we will market to the average Ghanaian voter. If you want your life to change, if you want good roads, you have to vote for the sun. That if you're looking for your wards, your children, to ensure that they have guaranteed basic education, you vote for the sun. That if you want to have jobs, especially those youth running around without jobs, if you want a job, if you've been looking for a job for 8 years and you haven't found a job, this is the time to go for Ijmura, and that Ijmura is associated with the sun.
Exactly. So from now, your campaign is going to be very, very keen. The flag bearer is in the northern region as of now. I don't know if it's moved to another place. Where else will we be going?
Oh, we'll be going to the Central region. We'll be going to the Volta. We'll be going to all 10 regions. Central region, Volta region, Eastern region, Western, Brong-Ahafo, Upper East, Upper West. All 10 regions will be going there.
All right, so in previous elections, the various parties have, or the major parties have often sought to get a strategic position on the ballot paper. If they get the top spot, then they're happy about that. If they get the bottom spots...
you recall in 2000, the MPP,
yeah, they used that you can say contributed to their victory. But it turns out that this particular balloting, it didn't quite happen for.
The interesting thing for the two main parties is the fact that they managed to retain the spot they had for the parliamentary elections. When the parliamentary balloting was done, the NDC had number 3, the NPP had number 5, so they retained those spots. They were the only parties that were able to retain those spots.
All right. So what's next for the EC?
Actually, in terms of the balloting was supposed to be done tomorrow, but the commission decided to do that today. So what the next thing on the commission's calendar has to do with the notice of poll. Now that they've finished with the balloting, they can go ahead and release the notice of poll. That is simply an announcement of all the candidates who will be taking part in this year's election. And
the EC is not anticipating any further legal tussle, as it turns out that Hassan Iyariga has been disqualified.
I think for now we can just say that it is a hope. In fact, I was speaking to Mr. Jakwasu just before I left the commission's office, and he is saying that the commission is hopeful that this is the end. The final one was that at the Supreme Court, and they hope they don't have any further legal action. But we definitely have to hold on a bit and try to find out from the various candidates who have been disqualified now whether they'll be taking any action. All right, thank you very much, Joseph Akable. And Joseph Akable has been our man at the Electoral Commission virtually all day. In other news, some election observers from neighboring Francophone countries are cautioning Ghanaians not to do anything that will plunge the country into chaos as the general elections approach. At a peer review meeting Wednesday, some of the observers shared experiences from other countries where some misunderstandings led to violence. They agree with assertions that Ghana has earned the respect of the sub-region with its peaceful elections over the years. Executive Director of the Guri Institute, a monitoring organization, tells Joy News the Electoral Commission must come to a consensus with all parties involved in all decisions to avoid chaos.
Ghana is a country which deeply we have an anchorage in terms of democracy, because it's quite an example both in Africa, I do not say in West Africa, but thanks to the fact that we have a stability of institutions, and now the stability of institutions is one thing, leadership is one thing.
We kept hammering the fact that Ghana should not take the peace that we are enjoying for granted, and that because sub-Saharan Africa, everyone is looking up to us. Have you seen anything in your monitoring so far, the reason why you have to keep hammering this particular concern?
What I mean here, in some countries, elections, after election you have like political crisis. I can give the example of Guinea-Bissau. What I mean is elections in terms of law can be critical also, but here I think Ghana is a peaceful country. Here I think we have one step more. Instead of talking about consolidation of democracy in Ghana, we need to talk about deepening democracy in Ghana.
Our Electoral Commission has been bedeviled with a lot of court cases. As a result, the Electoral Commission today has not even issued notice of polls for the presidential candidates. And so everybody is kind of agitated. Are we going to vote? Are we not going to vote? Is that a recipe for some kind of chaos, you think?
So all that I say, I think to have good elections, you need a minimum of consensus between the key stakeholders. The key stakeholders are the electoral commissions, the political parties, and the CSOs. I think we need to look for consensus.
Now, the Volta Regional Branch of the opposition New Patriotic Party wants former President Jerry John Rawlings to intervene in what they fear could be a possible compromise of the 2016 elections by illegal voters from Togo. Regional Party Chairman John Peter Amewu, during a courtesy call on the former president in his office, asked him to help stop the influx of the voters into the country on election day. There's more in this report by Raymond Akwa.
Often when one hears reports about the NDC and MPP, it is usually about the two parties being hostile or acrimonious towards each other. So it is unlikely one might court the other. But that is exactly what the MPP is doing. The Volta Regional Branch of the party is courting the founder of the NDC and former President Jerry Rawlings. The party called on the former president at his office in Accra over concerns the elections could be compromised by the inclusion of some Togolese nationals. Here's Volta Regional Chairman of the MPP, John Peter Amewu.
To appeal to these people in the Republic of Togo that they should take their time in exercising their democratic franchise in Ghana, since by law they are not supposed to do so. Your Excellency, all parties in Ghana should adopt an approach akin to democratic tolerance and should work together to achieve a common political ground while accepting diversity differences and seeking progress through inclusive democracy. In such a political approach, we need to work together to eschew new rules of behavior on how political parties can engage one another to ensure the atmosphere of political certainty and predictability. His Excellency, the NPP in Volta region have made serious appeal to the National Party, and it's interesting that I made this known to you. In our manifesto, the party have decided that we will be extending the national gas infrastructure pipeline to the southern part of Volta region. His Excellency, the attempt of the NPP to do this is to open the southern part of Volta region to become an industrial base for all Ghanaians and all people living within. Volta region as a party, His Excellency, with assurance from the regional chairman and his team, will open its administration, God willing, if we become the next government. We will run the region without any element of segregation. We will open up the region to all business-like folk. We will not take any action that will undermine Volta businessmen from doing their businesses in an atmosphere of peace, tranquility, and love. We want to use this opportunity in concluding once again to sincerely thank you and your office for hosting us. We believe that your commitment and timely intervention on some of the issues that we've raised here as a party from the region, and seeing you as a chief for the first time and also a father and a past president of this republic, will bring Ghana to a peaceful coexistence. We want to thank you.
Whilst not making any promises, Mr. Rawlings cautioned against any violence on the part of the two main parties, reiterating the importance for the polls to be conducted in peace.
Quarters and demand an answer from some of our colleagues, our comrades, as well as the EC, and possibly invite you as quickly as possible and give you their responses, okay? But for now, I can only suggest and make an appeal that as much as possible, let's do anything and everything that is possible to maintain the spirit of goodwill. You know, because time is a little too short. But at the same time, I do appreciate the point you're making about trying to make sure that we do not undermine the integrity of the process. Yes. After all, that's the only way we can ensure a peaceful election. So we do not undermine the climate, the justness of what is required of us. But at the same time, as I'm saying this, I would like to remind ourselves that I guess most parties are working towards winning the election. And I'm hoping for the best. I wish all of you the best, as I do for the NDC, the NPP, as well as the others. What the one serious appeal was something I made at the last election is another appeal I would like to make. That is, irrespective of whoever emerges as the winner, I hope the losing parties and their support base would have no reason to feel insecure. I think it's important that we take the necessary steps to give the necessary assurance to all citizens. The government you're going, or you, or whoever will form the presidency, will have to stretch out its canopy over all Ghanaians. This is what I am sincerely hoping for. Yeah. Before we continue, is there any point you'd like to make along the lines of what he read? You, Kobe.
Raymond Akwa's report for Joy News.
You're watching Joy News Prime. We'll be back with more stories. Please stay tuned. Now, the Bongo District Assembly in the Upper East region has launched a publication covering projects that have been executed by the Assembly over the last 8 years. According to Bongo District Chief Executive Alexis Ayamdo, the book, which has been dubbed the Bongo District version of the NDC's Green Book, will provide an avenue for constructive engagement between the District Assembly and citizens. Upper East correspondent Albert Sori reports.
A town hall meeting was held to launch the publication, which covers all projects executed by the Bongo District Assembly in the last 8 years. The projects covered in the publication include those funded with internally generated funds and those sponsored by donors and partners of the Assembly. Speaking at the launch, Bongo District Chief Executive Alexis Ayamdo said the launch of the book is part of government's effort to account to the people.
If you look at the book, all the teachers have got titles, okay, and most of them have really indicated the source of funding. And so if you look at, for instance, Azeda, a dormitory block, a one-story building dormitory block constructed, or two-story building dormitory block constructed, for a capacity of about 500 students. It is clearly stated there, every year is stated there, and the source of funding from Get Fund is also stated there. And so you, as a media person, if you want to cross-check, if you want to verify, you can easily walk out there and then check for yourself.
He defended the authenticity of the pictures published in the book, saying the pictures have been accordingly labeled to enable people cross-check. Upper East Regional Minister Alberta Bongo, who is also the MP for the Bongo constituency, said the area had achieved a lot in terms of development, but there was still a lot to do to improve the lives of the people in the area.
I urge all of you Assembly members to ensure that we have these schools occupied, and also that the facilities provided in these schools are well kept and maintained.
Paramount Chief of the Bongo traditional area, Nabasalifu Lemyarom, appealed to his people not to always demand too much compensation whenever government wants to use their lands for development projects. With the 2016 general elections getting closer, the launch of Bongo's district version of the NDC's Green Book offers the people of Bongo an opportunity to scrutinize developmental projects within the area and demand explanations where necessary to inform how they will vote this year. Albert Sori filed this report.
A strike by nurses over government's failure to resolve their salary concerns on Wednesday left patients stranded at the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital in Kumasi. The Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association declared a strike over several issues of concern to the association, including reinstatement of nurses' training allowances and other conditions of service. For now, the nurses and midwives are only attending to emergency cases at the hospital. Joining us is Mahmoud Mohamed Nuruddin. He has been speaking to the hospital chairperson for the Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwives Association, Gabriel Furieje. Right, we have Mohamed Nuruddin on the phone lines joining us from Kumasi. Good evening to you, Mohamed. Now, what's the very latest on this strike?
Well, it's right. The nurses are saying they wouldn't go back to work until the government, address their issues. Today, I spoke to the chairperson for the Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital branch, and he was emphatic that they wouldn't go back. And they have relocated all the nurses to the ward to take care of the emergency cases. Those patients who came to it, were stranded at the hospital.
All right, so it's not the case that the hospital has been shut down completely. It's just that they're refusing to attend to outpatients, as I understand.
Exactly. The hospital is not shut down. They are attending to emergency cases and other patients who were already at the hospital. They wouldn't attend to any new case except emergency cases as I speak now. They are saying that in the next few days, if government do not listen to their complaints, they would withdraw emergency cases as well.
Now, what are the hospital authorities themselves doing about it?
I tried speaking to them. They are saying that they wouldn't comment on issues, association issues. They wouldn't comment on issues like that because it is not it is not part of their duty to comment on association issues, and so they will not talk about it now. I called the PRO yesterday, and he declined to speak to me on that particular strike because it has nothing to do with the hospital.
All right, thank you very much, Mohamed Nuruddin. Now, the Ghana Federation of Disability Organization has condemned the misapplication of its 3% share of the District Assembly's Common Fund. The Executive Director of the Federation, Dr. Peter Obenga-Samoa, says the Ministry of Local Government must take immediate steps to stop the release of funds and retrieve monies paid out to some organizations who are beneficiaries of 3% share of the District Assembly's Common Fund. The Federation says they have cited a letter signed by the Minister for Local Government, Collins Dada, instructing all regional ministers and MMDAs to disburse funds to the Disability Franchise Group, a group they have no knowledge of.
The minister's signed letter is being used as an authority by this group to go around all these assemblies and municipal councils to collect money under the guise of training blind persons.
Exactly.
The money is actually the District Assembly Common Fund. You know, there's a 3% allocation for persons with disability. Now, the letter that is signed by the ministry actually doesn't say that the money should come from there. But what our checks are telling us, or what we find out from our checks, is that the district assemblies are taking money from that particular fund to pay this group, Disability Franchise Group, to undertake the training.
I get the understanding that, so as we speak now, this 3% is not coming to the GFD now?
No, it's not the whole of the 3%, but it's the amount of 5,000 yes, that has been deducted from that 3%.
And all this is going to this new group?
All this is going to this new group, which we don't know whether it's a phantom or it's a reality. And the issue is that the Disability Common Fund has certain guidelines. So the money is just not there to be thrown in any direction. It has certain guidelines. And it stipulates that this money or the fund should be used for certain things like advocacy and awareness raising, the rights of persons with disability. It should be used for educational support. It should be used for income generating activities. It should be used for training unemployable skills. So there are clear guidelines to this, you see. But, you know, somehow the minister signed this letter, and based on the strength and authority of the minister, the money is being given to this group.
Okay, so how bad is this affecting your members?
It is affecting our members really bad because, number one, even the common fund doesn't come as it should. And it's even not enough to meet all the needs that it should meet.
Watching Joy News Prime, we're taking a break, but still to come. Police investigates alleged assault of the parliamentary candidate of the opposition NPP in the Ododo-Diodio constituency following a scuffle that broke out last night with supporters of the governing NDC in the constituency. Stay tuned, we'll be back. Welcome back to Joy News Prime. 3 supporters of the opposition New Patriotic Party who were arrested in connection with a scuffle that broke out in the Ododo-Diodio constituency Tuesday night have been released by the police. This was after other supporters of the party massed up at the Jamestown police station where they were being held. The police, meanwhile, is investigating an alleged assault of the NPP parliamentary candidate for Ododo-Diodio, Ni Lante Banaman. Joy News' Ernest Main was there, and that's the rest of the story.
We are here right now at Jamestown. This is the Jamestown police station. You can see hundreds of supporters of the New Patriotic Party massed up here, and they are chanting songs. The message is simple. They're demanding the immediate release of 3 of their members who were arrested just last night, and it follows some confrontation between they and the NDC supporters. As you can see, we are told that they have been released, and then with the police right now, the issue was transferred to the Greater Accra Regional Police Command. They have just been brought in. We spoke to Stanley Adru-Blankson, who assured us just a while ago that the men were going to be released. Indeed, as we see right now, they have just been brought in, and the police will let them go, after which they will address a press conference to tell the media exactly what has been happening.
For no apparent reasons, 3 of our young boys were arrested. I am sure there must have been a fight, and you fight against an enemy. So if the police comes into it, the police must make sure that all those who created mayhem are arrested. But for you to arrest only 3 from one party, that's the MPP, and then you leave the rest, to a point that even the minister of sports, who doubles as the MP for Ododio, led people to go around and arrest people. Who gave him the order?
But there were 3 of them. We only saw 2.
One has been hurt. One was injured. And when he comes out from the hospital, we will invite you people and see the extent of pain that he had to.
What are you telling Amidi? Me do machine here Amidi. Moko be no go benam bafi. Why Amidi? Biane what she wa yemi. Why yemi like I want taki ame.
Calm has since restored to the constituency. From the Ododio constituency, Ernest Kojomenu for Joy News.
Elsewhere, dozens of women in the Wutu senior constituency of the Central Region Wednesday took to the streets to register their protest against the NPP parliamentary candidate there, George Anda, for, as they described it, denigrating women, especially those who are single. The protests are in connection with his comments asking the NDC parliamentary candidate, Hannah Tete, to name her husband. They have described the comments as offensive and are threatening to embark on a naked demonstration if George Anda does not show remorse and apologize for his comments before the elections. Some of them spoke to Joy News.
Jana, I say, Sujafo. Ne Sujafo na kanmentiasi. Enti ni fie Sujani ni bi ni ho. Ni fie Sujani ni ho.
George Anda has offended us with his comments. Doesn't he have single women in his house too? A man who refers to a woman as a prostitute must be dealt with. He has no right to speak like that. He must come out and apologize to all of us. The comments were unfair to Hannah. We are not doing politics, but we want him to come out and apologize.
Okay, break now. We're back with international news. You're watching Joy News Prime Time now for a recap of our top stories. 7 presidential candidates, including 3 initially disqualified, have been certified by the Electoral Commission to contest this year's election in December. The parties have since picked their positions on the ballot paper. The New Patriotic Party is pleading with ex-President Rawlings and the founder of the governing National Democratic Congress to help stop Togolese nationals from voting in Ghana. Police investigate alleged assault of the parliamentary candidate of the opposition New Patriotic Party in the Ododo constituency following a scuffle that broke out last night with supporters of the governing NDC in the constituency. The NDC's parliamentary candidate for the Tema Central constituency, Abi Bright, says she is ready to transform the lives of women if she wins in the upcoming parliamentary election. According to the aspiring MP, women must not concede to the notion that they can do just little for themselves. She says the NDC believes that its achievement over the last 4 years towards women empowerment and recognition indicates its commitment to the women of Ghana. Abi Bright was speaking on Joy News' Majority Caucus program on the role of women.
Okay. We need to look at elections in terms of conditions. Here are the people who have been underserved, you know, underrepresented or misrepresented. Here's the people that have been taken for granted, and the results are there on the ground. Here's the people that are hungry to see some development and some respect for us as, you know, a community. Here are people that cannot stand the retardation that we see in Tema Central. If we don't salvage the situation now, it's going to be a problem. Here are people that do not have a relationship with their representative. Here are people that do not hear their concerns from the constituency represented at the national level and, you know, added to the discussion of national policy. What I've promised is to give my constituency a voice, to be able to speak through the issues as they are presented from them to me, as I also experience them on the ground in my constituency. That I can put all of these together and represent Tema Central in a very articulate way. I promised that I would represent them in Parliament and speak in Parliament of the issues as we know in Tema Central and how that should inform the direction in general of our country. I've also promised them relationships, not only between myself and them, but to connect them to each other, because a key aspect of our deficiency really is the corporate social responsibility disconnect.
All right, we'll be back with entertainment. Stay tuned.